Intro. In a world where attention is currency, men often forget the quiet power of restraint. They believe that chasing a woman, proving their worth through constant pursuit, is the way to win her affection. But as Michael Sandel would argue, true value cannot be proven through transaction. It must be recognized, and recognition only comes when you stand still in your self-worth. Today, we explore the psychological tricks that make any woman chase you, not through manipulation, but through understanding. Understanding how the human mind values what is scarce, what is stable, and what does not beg to be valued. Because the truth is this: when you chase, you signal need. When you wait, you project power. And a woman's desire, like all human desire, moves instinctively toward what she feels might be lost. This is not about games. This is about power rooted in psychology and refined through philosophy. Michael Sandel once said that when we reduce relationships to market exchanges, we lose their moral depth. The same applies in attraction. When you treat affection like a commodity to earn, you lose the mystery that creates longing. So today we return to that mystery. To understand what truly makes a woman chase you, you must first become the kind of man who doesn't need to be chased. Part 1. The Power of Scarcity. Let's start with the first psychological truth. Scarcity increases value. It's one of the oldest rules in both economics and human nature. What is rare becomes precious, not because it changes in quality, but because it becomes limited in access. Women, consciously or not, respond deeply to this principle. When a man is available to everyone, always reachable, always trying, his perceived value drops. Not because he is less, but because his abundance makes him common. Michael Sandel's philosophy reminds us that when something sacred is bought and sold, it loses its meaning. In the same way, when a man constantly tries to sell his worth through effort, validation, and attention, the meaning of his presence fades. A woman feels no mystery around a man who is always there. She feels no thrill, no pursuit, no uncertainty. And uncertainty is the oxygen of attraction. The key is not to fake disinterest. It's to create real independence. The kind that makes you unpredictable. Not because you play games, but because you have a life that demands your focus. When she feels that your world does not revolve around her, it triggers a deep psychological shift. Her brain releases dopamine, the same chemical associated with pursuit, challenge, and reward. She begins to invest in you emotionally, even if she doesn't realize it. Because what we invest in, we start to value. Most men try to earn validation by giving too much too soon. They reveal all their thoughts, their emotions, their plans, hoping transparency will buy trust. But attraction is not built on exposure, it's built on discovery. A woman should uncover you slowly, like a mystery novel that rewards her patience. The moment you become predictable, the chase ends. So remember this: silence is a strategy. Space is seductive. The most magnetic men are not those who speak the most, but those who make their words feel earned. Your attention is your currency. Spend it wisely or it will lose its power. Let her wonder where your mind is. Let her feel your absence as much as your presence. Because scarcity isn't about ignoring her, it's about reminding her that you are not easily replaced. Part 2. The Psychology of Control. The second principle is control over emotion. The man who controls his emotions controls the rhythm of attraction. When you react instantly to a woman's words, moods, or silence, you become predictable. And predictability kills emotional curiosity. But when you respond calmly, measured, like a philosopher weighing a moral choice, you create tension. That tension is what makes her chase the emotional certainty you refuse to hand over easily. Michael Sandel's teaching on justice revolves around balance, between freedom and responsibility, between self-interest and moral duty. In attraction, the same balance exists between emotion and logic. A man must feel deeply but respond rationally. When a woman pulls away, the average man panics. He texts, calls, questions, pleads. But the wise man, the emotionally disciplined man, does nothing. He observes, reflects, and continues his life, because he knows that her withdrawal is not a rejection. It's a test of stability. A woman wants to feel that your emotions are not controlled by her behavior, that your happiness is self-sustained, that even if she leaves, you remain centered, unbroken, composed. This composure is not coldness, it's control. And control, in the female psyche, equals confidence. Think about it. When a man stays calm under emotional pressure, it signals dominance. Not in aggression, but in awareness. It tells her subconscious that he is in command of himself, and therefore capable of leading her emotionally. Every woman craves a man who can lead her emotions, not mirror them. Because when you mirror chaos, you become part of it. When you remain grounded, you become her anchor. Control doesn't mean apathy. It means choosing your responses carefully. It means giving your energy only to situations that deserve it. When she expects reaction, give silence. When she expects pursuit, give distance. When she expects anger, give calm. Each time you do the opposite of what her ego expects, you rewire her emotional rhythm. You break her pattern of control. Now she becomes the one seeking your validation, chasing the emotional predictability she can't find elsewhere. Sandel would remind us that the moral value of restraint lies in self-respect. To resist the impulse to react is to respect your own peace. And peace is what makes you powerful. Because the man who cannot be disturbed by emotional storms is the one every woman secretly longs to calm. So remember this: she doesn't chase your words. She chases your stability. Your calmness becomes her curiosity, and curiosity is the first step toward pursuit. Part 3. The Principle of Uncertainty. The third psychological trick that makes a woman chase you is uncertainty. Uncertainty is the emotional space where attraction breathes. It's not about confusing her. It's about letting her imagination participate in the relationship. When everything is certain, the mind relaxes and desire fades. When something is unpredictable, the mind stays alert, curious and engaged. Michael Sandel often argues that certainty, when it comes to moral choices, can blind us to deeper questions. The same is true in attraction. When a woman knows exactly how you feel, when she can predict your every reaction, she stops wondering. And when she stops wondering, she stops chasing. Most men destroy uncertainty because they crave reassurance. They want her to know they care, to know they're loyal, to know they'll never leave. But in doing so, they give away the very power that fuels her attraction, the tension between what she knows and what she feels. The right kind of uncertainty is not manipulation. It's authenticity without overexposure. You don't need to tell her everything you feel. Let your actions speak in fragments. Let her piece together your intentions through your consistency, not your confession. When she feels that you like her but can't quite predict your next move, you become emotionally magnetic. Her mind loops around the mystery of your behavior. Her thoughts return to you, trying to solve the puzzle. And that mental repetition, those loops of curiosity, are what we call emotional investment. To maintain uncertainty, you must be genuine but measured. Never fake interest or indifference. Instead, master the art of controlled revelation, showing enough to be intriguing, but not enough to be understood completely. The moment she figures you out, she emotionally moves on. So remain a question, not an answer, because questions keep people chasing. Part 4. The Law of Purpose. The fourth psychological key is purpose, the kind of focus that makes you unavailable to distraction. Nothing is more intoxicating to a woman than a man who has direction. When your purpose comes first, she feels the magnetic pull of your independence. You stop orbiting her world, and she starts revolving around yours. Michael Sandel teaches that freedom without purpose is empty. That real freedom means the ability to choose what's worth pursuing. And for a man, there is nothing more attractive than disciplined ambition. A woman doesn't chase men who chase her. She chases men who chase something greater. Purpose creates hierarchy in your attention. It tells her, without words, that she must earn a place in your schedule, that your time is valuable, that you're not free just because you have nothing better to do. You're free because you choose where your energy goes. This choice separates men who are needed from men who are desired. When a woman meets a man consumed by a purpose, be it a mission, a craft, or a vision, her instinct responds to his self-direction. It signals that his validation doesn't come from her, and paradoxically, that independence makes her crave his approval more. Because psychologically, women are drawn to emotional leaders, men whose lives have momentum. Never pause your journey for the sake of affection. Never slow your progress for the illusion of closeness. Because when you stop chasing your mission, you start chasing her, and she stops chasing you. Stay in motion. Let her catch glimpses of your world, not ownership of it. Your purpose should always be visible, but never negotiable. If she feels that she can derail your focus, she loses respect. If she feels that your goals remain steady, she begins to chase your attention as a form of validation. She wants to belong to your rhythm, to your movement, to your evolving story. So remember this: the man with a mission never begs to be chosen. He becomes the prize by default, because purpose is the highest signal of masculine value. It is proof that your energy is disciplined, your priorities are clear, and your heart is not for sale. Part 5. The Silence of Power. The fifth and often forgotten psychological trick is the silence of power. In the age of constant communication, silence is shocking and therefore powerful. When you resist the urge to over-explain, defend, or persuade, you project quiet authority. And authority, in the psychology of attraction, equals security. Michael Sandel speaks often about the moral meaning of speech, the idea that our words should have weight. In relationships, this translates to one rule: don't speak to fill space. Speak to create impact. Every word that leaves your mouth should feel intentional. When you talk less, your words carry more gravity. When you listen more, your presence becomes deeper. Most men talk themselves out of respect. They explain every decision. They overtext, over-apologize, over-justify. But true strength doesn't argue, it stands. When you choose silence, you force her to interpret your behavior. And interpretation keeps her mind active. She wonders what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you'll do next. Her imagination starts working overtime, trying to decode you. And that curiosity becomes emotional attraction. Silence also creates contrast. When you finally do speak, your words feel amplified. She listens differently. She leans in, because she knows you don't speak carelessly. In psychology, this effect is called selective scarcity. When something appears rarely, it becomes disproportionately valuable. So be silent strategically. Don't withdraw out of anger, but out of intention. Make your communication deliberate and your presence meaningful. Let her experience your absence as something profound, not passive. And here's the hidden truth. Silence tests emotional maturity. Immature people panic in silence because they need constant validation. But mature women, those capable of deeper attraction, find silence intriguing. They feel the gravity of a man who doesn't rush to fill every pause. They sense control, calmness, and confidence. In that silence, she begins to question, what is he thinking? Does he still care? Is he losing interest? And each question pulls her closer, psychologically tethered to the mystery of your stillness. That is the silence of power, the unspoken language that makes her chase, not for attention, but for emotional clarity that only you can give. Because when a man masters silence, he no longer competes for her focus. He commands it. Part 6. The Law of Self-Value. The sixth psychological secret is self-value, the inner conviction that your presence is a privilege, not a plea. Every interaction between a man and a woman reflects one invisible rule. The person who values themselves the most sets the tone. If your worth depends on how she feels about you, she will never feel strongly. But if your worth stands on its own, she begins to see you through the lens of admiration. Michael Sandel's moral philosophy reminds us that not all value is market value. Some things, like dignity, are beyond trade. They exist by virtue of being. Apply this truth to yourself. You are not valuable because you impress. You are valuable because you exist with depth, principle, and presence. When you internalize this truth, your behavior transforms naturally. You stop trying to convince. You stop trying to qualify. You stop trying to win. A woman senses when a man carries that silent confidence. She can feel it in the pauses between his words, in his posture, in his calm refusal to compete. Self-value radiates not through arrogance but through certainty. It says, I do not need to be chosen to know my worth. And paradoxically, that's what makes you irresistible. Every man who chases validation loses magnetism, because validation seeking reverses the natural polarity of attraction. A woman doesn't chase what she already controls. She chases what she respects. And respect is built when a man remains grounded, when he honors his own boundaries, time, and energy. So guard your self-respect like a sacred space. Don't argue to be understood. Don't perform to be liked. Don't beg to be loved. Stand firm in your truth. When she tests your limits, hold them. When she questions your calm, maintain it. Your refusal to be shaken by emotional storms is what earns her chase. Because deep down, every woman wants to follow a man whose self-worth doesn't bend under pressure. Self-value is not about superiority. It's about stability. It's about knowing that even if everything external falls apart, your center remains whole. The man who owns his self-worth becomes untouchable. He doesn't demand loyalty. He inspires it. He doesn't chase love. He attracts it. Because love, like respect, flows naturally towards strength. Part 7. The Power of Detachment. The seventh and final psychological principle is detachment, the ability to desire without depending. This is where most men fail. They confuse love with possession, attraction with control. But the truth is this: you can't make someone chase you if you're emotionally enslaved by their response. Detachment is not indifference. It's emotional freedom. It means you can want her deeply, but not need her desperately. It means you can enjoy connection without fearing loss. Because when fear leaves the equation, energy shifts. You stop repelling with neediness and start attracting with peace. Michael Sandel's philosophy on moral balance teaches that the highest form of freedom is not the ability to get what you want, but to remain yourself when you don't. That's the essence of detachment. When you no longer beg for affection, when you stop negotiating your worth through her attention, you reclaim your power. You show her that you exist fully, with or without her validation. Every woman subconsciously tests for this. She wants to know whether your emotions are free or fragile. When she sees that you can walk away with dignity, it creates a paradox in her mind. The moment she realizes she can't control you, she begins to want you. Because detachment signals abundance. Emotional abundance, mental abundance, spiritual abundance. You become the source of peace she can't find elsewhere. Detachment also rewires your energy. It removes anxiety, overthinking, and self-doubt. You stop sending signals of desperation and start radiating calm confidence. And that energy, though invisible, is magnetic. It's the reason some men barely speak yet dominate every room. They emit self-sufficiency. They don't try to be chosen. They choose themselves every day. Practice detachment by shifting your focus back to purpose, back to growth, back to the man you're becoming. The more you love your mission, the less you cling to her approval. And ironically, that's when she begins to chase you, not because she feels ignored, but because she senses that your peace is not for sale. Ending the paradox of chase. Let's return to where we began, with the idea of value. Michael Sandel reminds us that when we treat sacred things like commodities, they lose meaning. In love, the same law applies. The moment you try to be wanted, you stop being wanted. But when you live in alignment with purpose, peace, and restraint, you become the kind of man women cannot forget. The psychological tricks we discussed aren't deception, they're reflections of natural truth. Scarcity, control, uncertainty, purpose, silence, self-value, and detachment, these are not tactics. They are principles that reshape how the world sees you, and more importantly, how you see yourself. When you embody them, you don't just make women chase you, you make them respect the depth of your presence. You stop being a momentary thrill and become a lasting mystery. And in that mystery lies the most powerful form of attraction, emotional gravity. So the next time you're tempted to chase, pause, breathe, remember your worth. Because the man who can walk away without resentment is the one she never forgets. Be that man, the man who doesn't beg for attention, he commands it through silence. The man who doesn't compete for validation, he radiates value by existing fully in his truth. The man who doesn't chase, because he knows that everything meant for him will be drawn effortlessly by his calm confidence. That is the psychology of pursuit reversed. That is how you make any woman chase you. By becoming the one thing she can never control. A man at peace with himself.